And keep that in mind right there for when we have the discussion about the license plate stuff.
Okay.
Prior to the first of the year. So they sent them notice that they were going to do it. And that's the other part about this, is the city sending them notice that they're planning on creating this TIF. And so I got a flyer. So we had a meeting on Monday or Tuesday, so we were going to do this. So that weekend, I went out and made flyers and distributed them up in Carriage Trail and
Parktown?
Jeepers Creepers. Parktown, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know. I had Old Town in my head, and I knew there's Old Town Place in there, or Old Place, but not Parktown. And Parktown up there, and the apartments up that way, and said, hey, let's not tell your council members that they don't need to create a TIF that's taking money from the school. And so, as it turns out, we decided not to do that. But they had come up there. They decided not to create that TIF.
You're breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me?
That was on the public record.
Tom, you're breaking up. Hang on one second. All right. Stand by, folks. The phone cut off. He's on the road. He's coming back from New York. So let me get him back on the horn here. All right. So you were talking about your flyers. I think what we got is you were talking with the school board. You got flyers out there discussing this TIF.
Yep. But anyway, like I said, that's one of the things that's always bothered me was I consider this one of my successes was that I stopped or had the council do a non-school TIF for this property, but the papers make it seem like it wasn't as successful as what it was successful. But yeah, so that was that.
Okay, so let's talk about a few things that are happening now. We got it. Well, before we do that, go ahead and talk about some of the things that you were able to accomplish while you were mayor. I would like to hear your thoughts on that. I'd like to hear, or I'd like for the folks listening to this podcast to hear some of the things that you were able to accomplish as mayor.
Well, now you're killing me, right?
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought we did a real good job with transparency.
I think so.
The whole 4 years I was there, I thought we did a real good job with transparency and such. So,
I don't think this podcast would be out if it wasn't for Mayor McMasters speaking out on transparency, if I'm honest, because right. it was you that encouraged me to come up. I mean, not personally, but just by talking about transparency. And that's why I'm doing the podcast. So more folks get involved as you were talking out about, government overreach, transparency, things like that, things that I already felt. And then I came up, it was 2015 and talked about transparency and how it's so important. But, I don't think I think a lot of people you helped. I believe that, Brick City Watchdogs, when that was going on, I think that helped. Social media has blown up since all of that. I mean, social media has really grown since then. So more people, I think, are paying attention. And I think that makes our current politicians in Huber Heights a little nervous, but we can talk about that later. But go ahead. You were talking about how that some of the things that you accomplished, transparency being one.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that went a long way with that. It's a hard part because even though it looked like we were in conflict a lot of times, things kind of got done. The fire station. So that doesn't get done without the council, right?
Right.
The council needs to do that. I kind of take credit for that because I talked about it before the election, and then it was used as part of a way to do the 2025 plan, which I thought was kind of deceptive, the way they were kind of saying, well, we'll be able to do this. We'll be able to do this if you pass if you pass this levy. You know, I didn't like using it that way, but that was something that I was for, and I think that it brought to their attention that it needed to be done because I was talking about it. So it ended up in the 2025 plan because I was talking about it. But, you know, if the council wasn't ready to do it, then it doesn't get done then.
Right.
So
That's
all the
very
things
true.
that got done. But things like carriage trails, right? Before I was elected, they were giving $21,000 a house, right? $21,000 a house and supplement. As soon as I got elected, it was 14, and by the time I left, it was 8. I don't know that those numbers come down like that if I'm not talking about that.
Right.
And so how, you know, carriage trails is a success, but we took $8 million in debt and turned it into $26 million in debt, right, in order to pay for that $8 million.
Wow.
Right? Now,
yeah, I don't know.
It turns out that we got money to pay for that because those houses get built and they're paying for it and their the property tax that they would have been paying, so they're paying that off. But
so their assessments help pay that off.
When you had $8 million with nobody paying it at all, now you have $26 million and it's being paid for. So you're in a better position because of it. But the thing is, if you would have paid $21,000 a house instead of going to 14 to 8, then instead of $26 million, you'd have had debt in the $30 million.
Right.
Right.
So the assessments that the homeowner takes on when they go in there, that doesn't take care of that?
Okay. So there's two different things. There's assessment. So I'm happy that I left, that they've only been doing assessments now. Right. So that's good. Assessments, they pay for all that by themselves. But the money I'm talking about, money that was going to come from TIF dollars, right?
Okay.
And, you know, there's some people in the carriage trail says, well, why shouldn't my property tax pay for, you know, building my lot, right? And that works out really good. But if everybody's property tax went to paying just their lot, right, there'd be no money there to redo the old sewers or the old road.
Right.
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 So that's similar to what they were doing. They still had some money left over when they had 21,000 per house. It wasn't all going to build their lot, but a good portion of it was going to building their lot. Right. So the special assessments are totally different than the TIF dollars. So right now, if they're getting $5,000 for a lot, those are all going on in special assessment.
Right.
But I have no issues with special assessments because the property owner is paying that in addition to their property tax.
Yeah, those are the recent conversations I hear.
Yeah. The money that I was, right, before I was elected, they would have like $1,000 in special assessment to help build a lot, and then $21,000, $18,000 in
subsidy,
and the city helping them, and then that was going to be paid for out of TIF dollars.
Okay.
That's what I thought that they didn't need, right? And they didn't need it to that extent. So, you know, when Glenn and Shaw came in, they were going to well, we're not going to give them any of that $21,000. I never thought that we'd need to go there, but I definitely didn't think that they needed that much, you know, $21,000 per lot in order to sell the houses up there, especially, you know, at that time when they were selling like hotcakes, right?
Right. Yeah, Carriage Trails is a success, and it's helping the city of Heber Heights. There's no doubt about that.
If you look at that, and they sold 400 houses since 100 houses, 400 houses in the time that I was mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they went from 21,000 or 18,000 to 14,000. So that's $7,000 a house. And then they went to $8,000. So that's, you know, $10,000, $11,000 a house for 300,000 or 300 houses, 400 houses. I mean, you're talking $1 million or $2 million extra dollars that you would have in tip dollars that you'd have to come up with to pay that debt. Right? So, and it's proven. I mean, we've seen that since then that they were able to sell those houses with $8,000 supplements instead of $18,000 or $21,000 supplements. Right?
They certainly have been.
I mean, yeah, they haven't had any trouble selling.
Nope.
Selling the houses that way. So, would they have gotten less supplements with the old guard in there before I came in, or would they have gotten less supplements if even more so if Shaw and Otto had come in? No, they certainly wouldn't have got us less as we drove it down. So saving the city that money, I think, is a success.
Definitely.
Right? I think the Music Center financial, right? And here again, I have to say that Campbell helped me out with that too, right? I mean, the first time financials that the city manager presented us, they said we had a $300,000 profit. And I look at that, this number, I go, you're not counting this, you're not counting this thing, do it right. Well, me saying it, doing it right, got nowhere. But with Campbell coming up there and saying doing it right, next thing you know, we had a $100,000 loss. I mean, $400,000 difference in the numbers is a huge difference, right? I think the fact that both Mr. Campbell and I expected to see real numbers broken down in detail has really helped the success of that venue. Right? I mean, I believe that if you do the hard work, then you get good results out of that. And if you do sloppy work, like they tried to do in the first thing, you get sloppy things, and the next thing you know, you don't have enough money to pay your bill. So I think a lot of the $700,000 profit that we've seen, operating profit, of course, not total profit, but operating profit that we've seen, is a result of the fact that we said that we wanted them to sit down and do the hard work and do the numbers correctly.
So what do you think the difference was with you asking versus Mr. Campbell asking? What? You need a couple people that know what they're doing to back each other up. I mean, I just think that's just the way it is. It's like that. And of course, Mark has a lot of pull with the other members too, and such. Okay.
Right. So.
That's what I hear. We were talking about you and Mr. Campbell were able to work together and have the numbers that you thought should come forward, and finally you were able to get that done. So.
Yeah, well, I think that, like I said, I think that because they're doing the financials right, that venue is more successful. And I just, I think that that's the way it was. That's why I harp on things like doing the 5-year capital plan right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get that done right while I was mayor. I got it. At least they started doing it again. Right, because he hadn't done it for a while, but I think if you put things down in a 5-year capital plan where you've listed everything out, you know when it's going to run out, you can actually plan for stuff and put things in the budget and kind of get a good idea of what's going on. Now, those numbers always end up wildly different than what you plan for, but at least to me, things like not having a roof in there that you've been talking about for 5 years, right? They did the police station roof up there. Well, I mean, we talked about that when we talked about the fire station and City Hall. Right?
And the court building and everything, yeah.
And then you come up here and you have to add $150,000 to the budget. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it
right?
doesn't.
And so I'd like them to be doing a 5-year capital plan where they actually look at the numbers that are in there, and somebody goes, one of your council members or somebody else says, well,